The colony ship New Dawn shook violently as it fell through the frozen atmosphere of planet Cathara. Emma pressed her small hands against the cold window and watched the white world spinning below. She was only 6 years old, but she knew something was very wrong. The grown-ups were shouting and running around the ship. Red lights flashed everywhere. "Hold on, Emma," her mother, Dr. Maya, said as she strapped herself into the seat next to her daughter. "Everything will be okay." Emma trusted her mother, but the ship kept shaking harder and harder. Her father, Dr. James, was somewhere in the front of the ship helping the pilot. The other colonists were scared too. Emma could see it in their faces. The ship hit the ground with a terrible crash. Emma felt like she was being thrown around inside a giant washing machine. Metal screamed and glass broke. Then everything went quiet except for the wind howling outside. Emma opened her eyes. She was still alive. Her mother was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but she was moving. Around them, other people were getting up and checking if they were hurt. The ship was broken in many places. Cold air rushed in through the cracks and holes. "We need to get out of here," someone shouted. The ship might explode. Everyone grabbed what they could carry and rushed outside into the blizzard. The cold hit Emma like a slap in the face. She had never felt anything so freezing in her whole life. The wind was so strong she could barely stand up. Snow flew everywhere, making it hard to see. "Stay close to me, Emma," her mother said, pulling her coat tighter around her. They walked away from the broken ship as fast as they could. The snow was so deep it came up to Emma's knees. Her feet were getting numb even with her warm boots on. She could see the other colonists struggling through the storm too. That was when they saw the lights. Strange blue lights were moving through the blizzard toward them. At first, Emma thought they might be rescue ships, but as they got closer, she could see they were not machines. They were living creatures carrying glowing crystals. The creatures were very tall, much taller than any human. They walked on 2 legs like people, but their skin was blue like the color of deep ocean water. They had long, thin faces and big, dark eyes. Emma thought they looked like the lizards she had seen in books, but these lizards walked upright and wore clothes made of thick fur. "Stay behind me," Emma's father said as he appeared next to them. He had a cut on his arm, but otherwise looked okay. The blue creatures stopped a few steps away. One of them, who seemed to be the leader, stepped forward. He was older than the others, with white markings on his face. He spoke in a voice that sounded like wind blowing through caves. Emma could not understand the words, but somehow she knew the creature was not trying to hurt them. His big dark eyes looked sad and worried. He pointed at the broken ship, then at the humans, then at himself. He seemed to be asking if they needed help. Dr. James slowly nodded and pointed at the injured people. The blue creature nodded back and made gestures to his companions. They began moving toward the humans with their hands open to show they meant no harm. The leader creature, whose name Emma would later learn was Elder Thane, spoke to her father in his strange wind voice. Dr. James did not understand, but he could tell the creature wanted them to follow. With no other choice in the deadly blizzard, the humans picked up their injured and followed the blue beings into the storm. They walked for what felt like hours through the howling wind and driving snow. Emma's mother carried her when the snow got too deep. The blue creatures moved through the storm like they had done it 1,000 times before. Their crystal lights showed the way through the white darkness. Finally, they reached what looked like a cliff face covered in ice. But as they got closer, Emma could see there were openings in the rock. The blue creatures led them inside, and Emma gasped at what she saw. They were in a huge cave, but not like any cave she had ever imagined. The walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue and green light. The cave was warm, much warmer than outside. There were pathways carved into the crystal walls, and Emma could see more of the blue creatures moving around. Elder Thane led the humans deeper into the crystal cave. Other blue creatures came to look at them. Some seemed curious, while others looked worried or scared. Emma noticed there were smaller blue creatures too, including some that looked like children. They were brought to a large chamber where soft furs had been laid out on the crystal floor. The blue creatures brought them warm drinks in crystal cups. The liquid tasted strange, but it made Emma feel better and warmer. "Thank you," Dr. Maya said to Elder Thane, even though she knew he could not understand English. Elder Thane nodded and touched his chest, then pointed at her. He seemed to understand that she was grateful. He spoke to some of the other creatures, who brought more furs and what looked like glowing crystals that gave off heat. As the humans settled in and tended to their injured, Emma looked around the amazing crystal cave. Everything was so different from what she knew, but somehow beautiful. The blue creatures she would later learn were called Cathari seemed kind, even if they looked very different from humans. That was when she heard it. A small crying sound that made her heart hurt. She looked around and saw a female Cathari holding what was clearly a baby. The little creature was much smaller than the adults with paler blue skin. But something was wrong. The baby was shaking and its skin looked almost white instead of blue. The mother creature looked very worried. She was trying to warm the baby by wrapping it in furs, but nothing seemed to help. The little one kept crying in tiny, weak sounds that made Emma want to cry too. Without thinking, Emma stood up and walked over to the worried mother. The adult Cathari looked surprised when the small human girl approached. Emma pointed at the baby and then at herself. She held out her arms. The mother creature looked at Elder Thane, who watched carefully. After a moment, he nodded. Very gently, the mother placed the tiny, shivering baby in Emma's arms. The little creature was so cold Emma could feel it through her clothes. Without hesitation, she took off her warm winter coat and wrapped it around the baby. Then she held the tiny being close to her chest where her human body heat was strongest. The baby stopped crying almost immediately. Emma held the tiny Cathari baby close to her chest and felt its cold skin slowly getting warmer. The little creature had stopped crying and was now making soft cooing sounds. Its big dark eyes looked up at Emma with what seemed like wonder. The baby's mother, whose name was Nala, watched with amazement. She had never seen her daughter Kira so calm and peaceful. For days, the little one had been crying and shivering no matter how many furs they wrapped around her. Now in the arms of this strange, warm creature from the sky, Kira seemed happy for the first time. Elder Thane approached slowly. He looked at Emma holding the baby and spoke quietly to Nala in their wind language. Emma could not understand the words, but she could tell they were both surprised and pleased. "Emma, what are you doing?" her mother, Dr. Maya, called softly. She had been tending to the injured colonists, but now she saw her daughter holding an alien baby. "The baby was cold, Mama," Emma said simply. "She needed to be warm." Dr. Maya walked over carefully. As a scientist who studied alien life, she knew they had to be careful with unknown species. But as a mother, she could see that Emma's instincts were right. "The baby looked much better now. Can I see?" Dr. Maya asked gently. Nala looked nervous, but Elder Thane nodded. Dr. Maya knelt down beside Emma and carefully examined the little Cathari without touching her. What she saw made her gasp quietly. The baby's skin, which had been almost white when Emma first held her, was now a healthy, pale blue color. More surprising, the tiny creature seemed to be growing right before their eyes. Not quickly, but noticeably. Her breathing was stronger and her movements more active. "This is incredible," Dr. Maya whispered to herself. Over the next few hours, Emma refused to let go of baby Kira. She sat in the warm crystal cave holding the little one and humming soft songs her mother used to sing to her. The other humans were settling in and learning to communicate with the Cathari through gestures and simple sounds. Dr. James, Emma's father, was working with Elder Thane to understand their situation. Using drawings in the crystal dust on the cave floor, they managed to share basic information. The Cathari had lived on this frozen world for thousands of years, but the winters were getting longer and harder. Many of their young did not survive the cold seasons. This winter had been the worst in memory. It had lasted 3 times longer than normal and showed no signs of ending. The Cathari were a strong people, but they were slowly losing the battle against the endless cold. As night fell in the crystal caves, Emma finally agreed to eat some food. But she would not put Kira down. The baby seemed just as attached to Emma, clinging to her with tiny blue fingers and making upset sounds whenever anyone tried to take her away. Nala brought Emma a bowl of warm soup made from ingredients she did not recognize. It tasted like vegetables and herbs and made her feel strong and warm inside. While she ate, she noticed other young Cathari watching her with curious eyes. There were 5 other babies and small children in the cave. All of them looked pale and weak like Kira had been. Their mothers held them constantly, trying to keep them warm, but Emma could see they were all struggling. After Emma finished eating, she looked at the other young ones. "They're cold too," she said to her mother. Dr. Maya followed her daughter's gaze and understood. "Emma, we don't know if what you're doing is safe. We don't understand their biology yet." But Emma had already made up her mind. She called to the other young Cathari and patted the furs beside her. At first their mothers were hesitant, but Elder Thane spoke to them in his wise voice. Slowly they brought their children closer. Soon Emma was surrounded by young Cathari, all pressing close to her for warmth. Baby Kira remained in her arms, but now there were 4 other small ones cuddled against her sides and back. Emma giggled as they made happy chirping sounds, and their skin began to change from pale white to healthier shades of blue. Dr. Maya watched in fascination as something remarkable happened. Not only were the young Cathari getting warmer and stronger, but Emma seemed to be changing too. Her cheeks, which had been red from the cold, were now a normal color. She did not seem bothered by the temperature in the cave, even though it was still quite cold for humans. "Maya, look at this," Dr. James called from across the chamber. Dr. Maya walked over to where her husband was examining some crystal formations with Elder Thane. The old Cathari was excited about something and kept pointing at Emma and the children, then at the crystals. Through gestures and drawings, Elder Thane was trying to explain something important. He showed them pictures in the crystal of Cathari history. Long ago, their people had lived with other creatures, warm-blooded animals that helped them survive the cold seasons. But those creatures had died out thousands of years ago, leaving the Cathari to face the winters alone. He's saying that Emma is doing something their people haven't experienced in generations. Dr. Maya realized. She's awakening something in their young. As if to prove her point, they heard excited chirping from where Emma sat. The young Cathari around her were not just warmer now, but more active and alert than they had been in months. Baby Kira was actually trying to sit up on her own, something Nala said she had never done before. The adult Cathari began gathering around to watch this miracle. Word spread through the crystal caves, and more families arrived to see the human child who could warm their young with just her touch. Elder Thane spoke to the growing crowd in his deep voice. Emma could not understand his words, but she could feel the excitement and hope in the air. The old leader looked at her with deep gratitude in his dark eyes. "What's he saying?" Emma asked her father. Dr. James had been learning some basic Cathari words. "I think he's saying you're a gift from the stars, a bringer of warmth in the long cold." Emma looked down at baby Kira, who was now trying to grab her fingers with tiny blue hands. "I just wanted to help," she said simply. But even Emma could feel that something special was happening. The young Cathari were growing stronger every hour they spent close to her. Their skin was developing a golden shimmer she had never seen before. And Emma herself felt different somehow, more connected to this frozen world and its people. As the night grew deeper, Emma fell asleep, surrounded by her new friends. Baby Kira curled up on her chest while the other young ones pressed close for warmth. Their mothers watched with wonder as their children experienced the first peaceful sleep they had known in months. Dr. Maya sat nearby, taking notes and trying to understand what she was witnessing. Whatever was happening between Emma and the Cathari young, it was beyond anything science had prepared her for. It was something beautiful and mysterious, and it was changing everything. 3 weeks had passed since the crash, and Emma spent every day with the young Cathari. Baby Kira had grown so much that she could now crawl around the crystal cave on her own. Her skin had developed beautiful golden patterns that shimmered in the crystal light. The other young ones showed similar changes, growing stronger and smarter each day. Dr. Maya had been studying these changes carefully. She used her portable medical scanner to examine both Emma and the Cathari children. What she found amazed her more each day. "James, you need to see this," she called to her husband one morning. Dr. James came over to where Maya was looking at her scanner readings. The data showed something incredible happening inside the young Cathari bodies. "Their DNA is changing," Maya whispered. "Not breaking or getting damaged, but actually improving. New gene sequences are turning on that were completely inactive before." "What does that mean?" Emma asked as she played with Kira and the other children. "It means your warmth is not just making them feel better, sweetie. It's helping them become stronger in ways their people have never seen before." Emma looked down at Kira, who was trying to stack crystal pieces into a tower. The little one was only a few months old, but she was already doing things that should take years to learn. Dr. Maya continued studying her data. The Cathari are cold-blooded like reptiles on Earth, but these changes are giving them some warm-blooded abilities. Better temperature control, faster healing, improved brain development. Elder Thane had been watching the human scientists work. He approached with several other adult Cathari, including Nala. Through their growing, shared vocabulary and gestures, he began to tell them an old story. Long ago, he explained, the Cathari had lived alongside creatures called the warmth givers. These were furry animals that could create their own body heat. The Cathari young would sleep with these creatures during the cold seasons. Both species helped each other survive. But then came the Great Freeze, a winter that lasted for many years. The warmth givers could not survive such cold for so long. One by one they died out, leaving the Cathari to face the winters alone. He's saying that over thousands of years his people slowly forgot how to work with warm-blooded creatures. Dr. James translated. But the ability was always there in their genes, just sleeping. And Emma woke it up, Dr. Maya said with wonder. Emma was listening, but she was more interested in teaching Kira how to make different sounds. The little Cathari was incredibly smart and could already repeat simple human words like mama and warm and friend. Look, Mama, Emma said excitedly. Kira can talk. Indeed, the baby was babbling in a mix of Cathari wind sounds and human words. The other young ones were doing the same thing, creating a new way of speaking that both species could understand. Dr. Maya realized something else important was happening. Emma, show me your hands. Emma held up her small hands. Dr. Maya used her scanner and gasped at what she saw. Emma's cells were changing too, but in different ways than the Cathari. What is it? Dr. James asked, worried. Emma is developing cold resistance. Her blood flow has improved and her body is learning to keep warm in much colder temperatures. But there's something else. Maya paused, looking at the strange readings. There are microscopic organisms in her system that I've never seen before. Elder Thane overheard and nodded knowingly. He touched his chest and spoke in Cathari, then tried to explain in simple words they had learned. All Cathari carry the small life helpers. He said slowly. They help us live in the cold and understand the crystal caves. Now the small helpers learn from human girl. They help her too. Dr. Maya understood. Symbiotic microorganisms. The Cathari have bacteria or something similar that helps them survive in this environment, and now Emma has them too. This explained why Emma seemed so comfortable in the cold cave and why she could understand the Cathari children so well. The tiny organisms were helping her adapt to this world, just like her warmth was helping the Cathari adapt to having warm-blooded companions again. Is it dangerous? Dr. James asked, concerned for his daughter. Elder Thane shook his head firmly. Small helpers only help, never hurt. Human girl is becoming bridge between our peoples. Emma was indeed becoming something special. She could now understand basic Cathari speech without translation. She knew which crystals in the cave were warm and which were cool. She could even predict when the weather outside would change by feeling vibrations in the crystal walls. The other human colonists had been watching these developments with mixed feelings. Some were amazed and excited about the friendly relationship with the alien species. Others worried about Emma spending so much time with creatures they still did not fully understand. Maybe Emma should spend more time with humans, suggested Dr. Roberts, one of the other scientists. No, Emma said firmly. Kira needs me. All the babies need me, it was true. Whenever Emma was away for too long, the young Cathari became restless and their golden shimmer would fade. They had formed a bond that went deeper than anyone had expected. Nala approached Dr. Maya with a worried expression. Through gestures and simple words, she explained that other Cathari communities were struggling with the long winter. Many young ones in distant caves were not surviving the cold. She wants to know if Emma could help the other communities too, Dr. James interpreted. Emma looked up from where she was teaching Kira to draw pictures in the crystal dust. Can we help them, Mama? Dr. Maya felt torn between her duty as a scientist and her love for her daughter. What Emma was doing was clearly helping the Cathari, but it was also changing her in ways they did not fully understand. We need to be careful, Emma. We don't know what might happen if you try to help too many at once, but Emma had already made up her mind. She looked at baby Kira, who was now almost as big as a human toddler despite being only a few months old. The little Cathari looked back with intelligent golden eyes that seemed to understand everything. They helped us when our ship crashed, Emma said simply. Now we help them. Elder Thane had been listening to this conversation. He spoke to the other adult Cathari, who nodded in agreement. Then he turned to the human family. Human child has gift from the stars, he said in his careful human words. But gift must be shared carefully. Too much too fast could be dangerous for all. Dr. Maya realized that the Cathari leader understood the risks too. He wanted to help his people, but he also cared about Emma's safety. What do you suggest? She asked. Elder. Thane thought for a moment, then gestured toward the cave entrance where the endless winter raged outside. First we test. Small group from nearby cave comes here. Human girl helps their young. We learn together how to make this work safely. Emma clapped her hands happily. More friends. Baby Kira made happy chirping sounds as if she understood they would soon have more playmates. The other young Kethari gathered around Emma, excited about meeting new friends from other communities. Dr. Maya looked at her husband, who nodded slowly. They were scientists, and this was the discovery of a lifetime. But more than that, they were parents who could see their daughter was truly happy and doing something important. All right, Dr. Maya said, but we do this step by step and we monitor everything carefully. Emma hugged her mother tight, then ran back to play with her Kethari friends. As she watched her daughter, Dr. Maya realized they were no longer just crash survivors waiting for rescue. They had become part of something much bigger, a new chapter in the history of two very different species learning to live together. Word traveled fast across the frozen continent. Other Kethari settlements heard about the miraculous human child who could save their young from the endless winter. Messengers arrived daily at Elder Thane's cave, bringing desperate pleas for help from communities where babies were dying from the cold. Emma, now 7 years old, had successfully helped young Kethari from 3 nearby settlements. Each time the results were the same. The children grew stronger, developed golden skin patterns, and became incredibly smart for their age. But with each success came new problems. War Chief Vex arrived on a particularly cold morning with 12 of his strongest warriors. He was a massive Kethari with dark blue skin marked by battle scars and eyes like winter storms. Unlike Elder Thane, who welcomed the humans, Vex looked at them with suspicion and anger. "This is wrong," Vex declared in his booming voice as he stood in the main chamber of the crystal cave. "Our people have survived for thousands of years without help from sky creatures. Now you make us weak and dependent." Elder Thane remained calm but firm. "Look at the young ones, Vex. They are stronger than any of our children have ever been. How is this weakness?" Vex pointed at baby Kira, who was now walking and speaking in both languages. "That is not a true Kethari child anymore. Look at her strange golden skin and her mixed words. She belongs to neither world." Emma felt hurt by his words. Kira was her best friend, and one of the smartest, happiest children in the cave. "She's not strange," Emma said bravely, even though the big warrior scared her. "She's special. You see," Vex said to the gathered Kethari. "Even their young speak as if they own our children. Soon they will control all of us through the little ones." Dr. Maya stepped protectively in front of Emma. "We're not trying to control anyone. We just want to help." "Help, that comes with a price," Vex replied. "What happens when you sky people leave? Will our young die without your warmth? Will we forget how to be Kethari?" His words made some of the adult Kethari look worried. They had been so grateful for Emma's help that they had not thought about what would happen in the future. Elder Thane spoke to the crowd in their wind language, trying to calm their fears. But Vex spoke louder and with more passion. Emma could not understand all the words, but she could feel the tension growing in the cave. "What are they arguing about?" Emma asked her father. Dr. James had been learning more Kethari words each day. "Vex thinks we're changing their culture too much. He wants us to stop helping the children." Emma looked at Kira and the other young Kethari who had become like brothers and sisters to her. The thought of not being able to help them anymore made her feel sick inside. "But they need us," Emma said. "The winter is still going on and more babies are getting sick." "I know, sweetheart. But some of their people are afraid of change even if it helps them." The argument continued for hours. More Kethari arrived from different settlements, some supporting Vex and others supporting Elder Thane. The crystal cave filled with voices all talking at once. During all this arguing, Emma noticed something strange happening to herself. The symbiotic organisms that Dr. Maya had discovered were making her different in new ways. She could sense the emotions of the Kethari around her. She knew that Vex was not just angry but also scared. She could feel the worry of the parents and the confusion of the other children. More importantly, she was starting to understand the Kethari crystal technology. The caves were not just natural formations but complex systems that controlled temperature, airflow, and communication across great distances. Emma found herself knowing how to adjust the crystals to make the cave warmer or to send messages to distant settlements. "Mama," Emma said quietly, pulling on her mother's coat. "I can feel the crystals talking." Dr. Maya looked down at her daughter with concern. Emma's eyes had developed tiny flecks of gold similar to the patterns on Kira's skin. "What do you mean, sweetie?" "They're like a big computer but made of living rock. I can hear them humming and I know how to make them work better." This was troubling news. Dr. Maya had been documenting all the changes in Emma, but this was beyond anything they had seen before. Her daughter was not just adapting to the cold or learning the language. She was somehow connecting with the alien technology itself. Before Dr. Maya could respond, a young Cathari messenger burst into the cave. He was exhausted from traveling through the storm and spoke rapidly to Elder Thane in urgent wind sounds. Elder Thane's face grew dark with worry. He translated for the humans. Terrible news. A hunting party from Vex's settlement is trapped in the deep valleys. The storm has been going for 3 days and they cannot find shelter. Among them is Vex's own son, Drac. Vex, who had been arguing loudly, suddenly went very quiet. His son was only 16 years old and had insisted on joining the hunting party to prove himself as a warrior. How many are trapped? Elder Thane asked. 7 hunters, including 3 young ones. They were hunting the great ice beasts when the storm hit. Their emergency crystals are not working and they have no way to stay warm. The cave fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. No Cathari could survive 3 days in the deep cold without proper shelter. The hunting party was probably already dead. We must send rescue teams immediately, Elder Thane said. In this storm, one of the older Cathari replied. It would be suicide. We would only lose more people. Vex stood like a statue, his warrior pride fighting with his fear for his son. To ask for help would mean admitting he was wrong about the humans. But to do nothing would mean losing his child. Emma felt all of this through her new connection to the Cathari emotions. She also felt something else. Through the crystal network, she could sense life signs in the deep valleys. Faint and cold, but still alive. They're not dead yet, Emma said suddenly. I can feel them through the crystals. They're very cold and scared, but still breathing. Everyone stared at her. How could a human child know what was happening so far away? The crystals go everywhere under the ice, Emma explained. They can sense living things. Drac and the others are hiding in a small cave, but it's not warm enough. They won't last much longer. Vex looked at Emma with new eyes. Can the crystals tell us exactly where they are? Emma closed her eyes and placed her hands on the glowing crystal wall. Information flowed through her mind like a gentle river. She could see the underground map of the entire continent. She could feel the warm spots and the cold spots. And there in a small cave 3 days' journey away, she could sense 7 frightened Cathari growing weaker by the hour. I can find them, Emma said, opening her eyes. But someone has to take me there. Absolutely not, Dr. Maya said immediately. You're not going out in that storm, Emma. But Mama, I'm the only one who can guide the rescue team. And my warm blood might be the only thing that can save them once we find them. Vex stepped forward and did something no one expected. He knelt down in front of Emma so they were at the same eye level. Human child, he said in his deep voice, if you can truly save my son, I will never speak against your people again. But I cannot ask you to risk your life for us. Emma looked into his storm-gray eyes and saw the same love for his child that her own parents had for her. You helped us when our ship crashed. Now it's our turn to help you. The cave erupted in discussion again. Some Cathari thought it was too dangerous, while others believed it might be their only hope. Through it all, Emma stood quietly, knowing that whatever they decided, she would find a way to help. Drac and the other hunters were her friends too, even if she had never met them. Finally, Elder Thane raised his hand for silence. The child speaks wisdom. This is not about human or Cathari anymore. This is about saving lives. If Emma is willing to guide a rescue mission, then we must try. Vex nodded slowly, his warrior pride crumbling in the face of a father's desperation. When do we leave? Emma looked at her parents, who were clearly terrified but also proud of their brave daughter. As soon as the storm calms down a little. I'll need to stay connected to the crystals the whole way, and that's easier when the wind isn't so loud. As if responding to her words, the howling wind outside began to quiet. The endless storm that had raged for weeks was finally starting to weaken. It was time for the most dangerous mission any of them had ever attempted. The rescue team prepared to leave at dawn. Vex insisted on leading the mission himself along with 4 of his best warriors. Elder Thane chose 3 experienced guides who knew the deep valleys. Dr. James refused to let Emma go. Without him and Dr. Maya packed medical supplies. For the injured hunters, Emma wore her warmest clothes and carried a special pack filled with heat crystals that the Cathari had prepared. Baby Kira cried when she realized Emma was leaving and tried to follow her to the cave entrance. I'll be back soon, Emma promised her best friend. Take care of the other little ones while I'm gone. Kira nodded seriously and spoke in her mixed language. Bring friends home safe, Emma. Crystal spirits go with you. The rescue team stepped out into the frozen world. The storm had calmed, but the wind still bit at their faces like icy teeth. Snow fell steadily, making it hard to see more than a few steps ahead. The cold was so intense that even the Cathari pulled their fur cloaks tighter around themselves. Emma placed her hands on a crystal outcropping that jutted from the ground near the cave entrance. She closed her eyes and felt the vast network of living stone that ran beneath the entire continent. Through the crystals, she could sense the trapped hunters still alive but growing weaker. "They're still there," she announced. "But we need to hurry. Drax's life signs are very faint." Vex's jaw tightened at the mention of his son, but he nodded grimly. "Lead the way, small one." The journey was the hardest thing Emma had ever done. The deep snow came up to her chest, and she had to be carried much of the way. The wind howled around them, and several times they had to take shelter behind ice formations to avoid being blown away. But Emma's connection to the crystal network kept them on the right path. Every few hours she would stop and touch the crystal formations that appeared randomly across the landscape. Each time she could sense the hunters and adjust their direction. "How much further?" Dr. James asked as they took shelter in a small ice cave on the second day. Emma touched the crystal wall and felt the familiar warmth of the network flowing through her mind. "We're close now. Maybe 4 more hours, but the last part will be very dangerous. There's a steep cliff and the crystal signals are getting confused." Vex looked at her with respect he had never shown before. "You have guided us better than our most experienced scouts could have. But are you strong enough for the final push?" Emma was exhausted and cold despite her improved resistance to the weather, but through the crystals she could feel Drax's fear and pain. The young Cathari was calling for his father in weak whispers that only the crystal network could hear. "He's asking for you," Emma told Vex quietly. "He's scared, but he's trying to be brave like his father." The big warrior's eyes filled with something Emma had never seen before. Vex, the fierce leader who trusted no one, was crying. "My son should not have to be brave. He should be safe and warm with his family." "Then let's go get him," Emma said simply. They resumed their journey through the howling wind. The final approach was treacherous with hidden crevasses and unstable ice formations. Emma had to use the crystal network to guide them around the most dangerous areas. Finally, they reached the cliff face where the hunters were trapped. Emma could sense them directly below in a small cave about 50 feet down. But there was no safe way to reach them. The cliff was covered in ice, and any rope would likely break in the fierce wind. "There," one of the Cathari guides pointed to a narrow ledge that led down the cliff face. "It's possible, but very dangerous." Vex studied the treacherous path. "I'll go first. If I fall, the others can still attempt a rescue." "No," Emma said firmly. "I have to go first. I'm the only one who can guide us to the exact cave entrance. And I'm the lightest, so the ledge is less likely to break." Dr. James grabbed his daughter's arm. "Emma, you're not climbing down that cliff. It's suicide." But Emma had already made up her mind. Through the crystal network, she could feel Drax slipping away. The young Cathari was barely conscious and would not survive another hour without help. "Daddy, I can feel the safe path through the crystals, and I'm small enough to fit through spaces the grown-ups can't. If I don't go first, they'll all die." Vex knelt beside Emma again. "Small one, you have already done more than anyone could ask. You don't need to risk your life for my son." Emma looked at the big warrior who had once been her enemy. "Yes, I do, because that's what friends do for each other." The climb down was terrifying. Emma moved slowly, using her connection to the crystals to find the safest handholds. The wind tried to tear her from the cliff face, and ice formed on her gloves, making it hard to grip the rock. Behind her, Vex followed step by step, ready to catch her if she fell. Despite his size and weight, the warrior moved with surprising grace down the treacherous path. Halfway down, Emma's foot slipped on a patch of ice. She dangled from one hand while the wind spun her around like a toy. Below her was a drop that would certainly kill her. "Hold on," Vex shouted, reaching down to grab her. But before he could reach her, Emma managed to swing herself back against the cliff face. Her enhanced cold resistance and the symbiotic organisms in her blood were helping her stay strong despite the brutal conditions. "I'm okay," she called back. "Keep following me." They reached the cave entrance just as Emma's strength was about to give out. Inside, they found the 7 hunters huddled together for warmth. Drax was unconscious in the center while the others formed a protective circle around him. "Father," one of the older hunters whispered in amazement. "You came." "Of course I came," Vex said, rushing to his son's side. "No storm could keep me from you." But Drac was in bad shape. His breathing was shallow and his skin was almost white from the cold. Emma immediately knelt beside him and pulled off her coat. "He's too cold," she said, wrapping the young Kethari in her arms. "His body is shutting down." Emma held Drac close and shared her human body heat with him. Slowly, the golden shimmer that marked all the children she had helped began to appear on his skin. His breathing grew stronger and his eyes fluttered open. "Emma," he whispered, recognizing her from the stories he had heard. "You came to save us." "We all came to save you," Emma said, looking at Vex, who was crying again. "Your father climbed down that scary cliff because he loves you." Drac looked at his father with new understanding. Vex had always seemed so strong and fearless, but now the young Kethari could see that his father's greatest fear was losing his family. "I'm sorry, father," Drac said weakly. "I wanted to prove I was brave like you." Vex gathered his son in his arms. "You are brave, my son. But true bravery is not about taking foolish risks. It's about protecting the ones you love." Emma helped the other hunters warm up using her body heat and the special crystals she had brought. One by one, they grew stronger and were able to move around the small cave. "How do we get back up?" one of them asked, looking at the cliff face outside. Emma touched the cave wall and felt the crystal network humming beneath her fingers. "There's another way out through the back of the cave. The crystals show a tunnel that leads to the surface about half a mile from here. You can see tunnels through solid rock," Vex asked in amazement. "The crystals see everything," Emma explained. "They're like the nervous system of the whole planet. Once you learn to listen, they tell you all their secrets." The journey back to Elder Thane's settlement took 2 more days, but it felt like a celebration. The rescued hunters shared stories of Emma's bravery and Vex's determination. Word of the successful mission spread ahead of them. Through the crystal network that Emma had taught the Kethari to use more effectively. When they finally reached the cave entrance, they were greeted by cheering crowds. Baby Kira ran to Emma and hugged her tight while speaking rapidly in her mixed language. "She says the crystals told her you were coming home," Nala translated, "and that you brought back more than just the lost hunters." It was true. Emma had brought back something more valuable than 7 lives. She had brought back the trust and friendship of War Chief Vex and his people. The big warrior who had once opposed the humans now stood before the gathered crowd and spoke in his powerful voice. "I was wrong about the Sky People," he announced. "They are not here to control us or make us weak. They are here to help us become stronger than we ever dreamed possible." Vex knelt before Emma one final time. "Small one, you have saved my son and shown me the true meaning of courage. From this day forward, my warriors and I will help protect your people and learn from your wisdom." Emma smiled and hugged the big warrior who was no longer her enemy, but her friend. "We're stronger when we work together," she said simply. That night, the crystal caves rang with celebration. Human and Kethari voices joined together in songs of friendship and hope. The rescue mission had proven that the 2 species could face any challenge as long as they stood united. But Emma knew this was just the beginning. Through the crystal network, she could sense other communities across the continent, communities that still needed help, surviving the endless winter. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she was content to sit with Kira and her other friends, planning for a future where no child, human or Kethari, would ever have to face the cold alone. 6 months had passed since the rescue mission, and the world of Kethara was changing in ways no one had ever imagined. The endless winter finally began to break as spring arrived for the first time in over a year. Green shoots pushed through the melting snow and the crystal caves hummed with new energy. Emma was now 8 years old and had grown taller and stronger. The golden flecks in her eyes had become more pronounced, and she could communicate with the crystal network as easily as speaking with her parents. She had become something new, neither fully human nor Kethari, but a bridge between both worlds. The settlement around Elder Thane's cave had expanded into a thriving community. Human colonists and Kethari families lived side by side in homes carved from crystal and built with human technology. Children of both species played together in the warming valleys and learned from each other every day. Baby Kira was no longer a baby. She had grown into a remarkable 3-year-old who could speak 3 languages, human Kethari, and the new mixed tongue that the young ones had created together. Her golden skin patterns were more beautiful than ever, and she could operate crystal technology that amazed even the oldest Kethari engineers. "Emma, look what I made," Kira called excitedly from across the main chamber. Emma turned to see her best friend had created a crystal sculpture that glowed with warm light. It was shaped like two hands, one human and one Cathari, reaching toward each other. "It's beautiful, Kira. What does it do?" "It stores warmth from the day and gives it back at night. I thought of it when I remembered how you first shared your coat with me." Dr. Maya watched this exchange with pride and wonder. Her daughter and the young Cathari had achieved things that experienced scientists thought impossible. They had learned to blend human creativity with Cathari crystal mastery, creating innovations that benefited both species. "The thermal storage crystals are working perfectly," Dr. Maya reported to the mixed council of human and Cathari leaders. "We can now maintain comfortable temperatures in the settlements even during the coldest nights." Elder Thane nodded approvingly. "The young ones teach us new ways to use gifts we have always possessed. Human imagination helps us see possibilities we never considered." War Chief Vex had become one of the strongest supporters of the joint community. His son Drac now worked closely with Emma and the other children, developing new technologies and teaching combat skills to both species. "The Deep Valley settlements are requesting more thermal crystals," Vex reported. "Word of our success has spread across the entire continent. Communities that were barely surviving are now thriving." Emma listened to the adult discussions, but her attention was focused on something else. Through the crystal network, she could sense something wonderful happening across Kethera. Communities that had been isolated for generations were now connected and sharing resources. Young Cathari in distant settlements were developing the same golden patterns and enhanced abilities that she had first awakened in Kira. "The changes are spreading," Emma said during a pause in the meeting. "Even Cathari children who have never met humans are becoming stronger and smarter." Dr. James looked up from his research notes. "How is that possible?" "The crystal network remembers everything," Emma explained. "When I helped the first children here, the crystals learned how to trigger the genetic changes. Now they're sharing that knowledge with crystal formations all across the planet." Elder Thane's eyes widened with understanding. "The planet itself is helping our young ones evolve. The ancient connection between our people and the world is being restored." This was the most remarkable discovery yet. Kethera was not just a frozen world, but a living system that could adapt and learn. The crystals that the Cathari had always thought were simple tools were actually part of a vast planetary intelligence that had been waiting for the right catalyst to awaken. "That's why the warmth givers were so important to your ancestors," Dr. Maya realized. "They weren't just providing heat. They were triggering the planet's ability to help your species evolve and adapt." Emma stood up and walked to the large crystal formation that dominated the center of the chamber. She placed her hands on its surface and felt the vast network humming with life and intelligence. "The planet wants to help," she said softly. "It's been lonely since the warmth givers died out. Now it has humans to work with again, and it's very happy." As if responding to her words, the crystal formation began to glow more brightly. Patterns of light raced through the walls, spreading throughout the entire cave system. Similar responses were happening in settlements across the continent as the planetary intelligence celebrated the return of cooperation between warm-blooded and cold-blooded species. "What should we do now?" asked Dr. Roberts, one of the human colonists. Emma looked around at the mixed group of humans and Cathari who had become her extended family. "We should build something wonderful together." Over the following weeks, plans were made for an ambitious project. Using combined human engineering and Cathari crystal mastery, they would create the first joint academy, where young people from both species could learn and grow together. The academy was built in a new location halfway between the human settlement and the largest Cathari city. It was a marvel of crystal architecture with warm living spaces comfortable for both species. Gardens flourished in controlled environments, where children could study plant life from both Earth and Cathera. Emma was chosen as the first student ambassador, helping to design the curriculum and teaching methods. She worked with Kira, Drac, and dozens of other young people to create programs that would prepare them for a future none of their parents could have imagined. "What will you study first?" Dr. Maya asked as Emma prepared for the academy's opening day. "Everything," Emma replied with excitement. "Crystal engineering, human technology, Cathari history, Earth biology, and most importantly, how to be good friends with people who are different from you." The opening ceremony was attended by representatives from dozens of settlements across Cathara. Elder Thane gave a speech about the importance of learning from other species. War Chief Vex spoke about courage and cooperation. Dr. Maya, and Dr. James shared their hopes for scientific advancement through cultural exchange, but it was Emma's speech that moved everyone the most. When I first came to this world, I was just a scared little girl whose ship had crashed in the snow, she began, speaking to the gathered crowd in perfect Cathari. I shared my coat with baby Kira not because I was trying to change the world, but because she was cold and I wanted to help. She switched to human language so her parents could understand. Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. When we care about others, even when they look different or speak different languages, amazing things can happen. Finally, she spoke in the new mixed language that the young ones had created. Today we start a new chapter for both our peoples. We will learn together, grow together, and reach for the stars together. The crowd erupted in cheers as Emma and Kira walked hand in hand into the Crystal Academy. Behind them came dozens of other children, human and Cathari, ready to build a future that honored both their traditions and their shared dreams. As evening fell, Emma and Kira stood on the Academy's observation deck looking up at the stars. The aurora lights of Cathara danced across the sky in brilliant colors that seemed to celebrate the new alliance. "Do you think we'll really go to the stars someday?" Kira asked in her musical voice. Emma squeezed her best friend's hand. Through the crystal network, she could sense the dreams and hopes of children all across the planet. She could feel the planetary intelligence itself anticipating the day when Cathara's children would carry their unique gifts to other worlds. "I know we will," Emma said confidently, "and when we do, we'll carry the most important lesson from our world. That friendship and kindness are the greatest powers in the universe." Above them, the stars seemed to twinkle in agreement. Somewhere among those distant lights were other worlds where different species might learn the same lessons. Emma and Kira would be ready to teach them that the warmth of compassion could bridge any gap and overcome any challenge. The little girl who had once shared her coat with a cold alien baby had become the founder of an interstellar friendship that would echo through the ages. And it all began with a simple human truth that needed no translation: love is the same in every language, and caring for others makes everyone stronger. As the two friends planned their future, together the Crystal Network carried their dreams across the planet and beyond. Cathara itself had become a beacon of hope, showing the galaxy that when different peoples choose cooperation over conflict, they can achieve miracles that neither could accomplish alone. The stars were waiting, and Emma and Kira were ready to show them what friendship could build.